fantastical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL network.
See, that is right. Welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network for the Bad Bunny SNL Hot Take Show live right after the new episode of Saturday Night Live, where we will be live every single week to be with you to break down all the newest sketches that you just watched. And I'm so excited to be here every single week with some very special guests as well. So thank you for everybody who stays up late with us in the chat. Always great to see your thoughts. And let me bring in our guests that we have here tonight. So first up, my man, Anthony Conway. Anthony, how are you?
I'm good, John. I woke up this morning. No complaints. You feel me?
Yeah, well, good. I'm very excited to catch up with you, have you back on for the new season, Anthony. So excited to get your thoughts on the sketches. And joining us is the incomparable Amanda Mitchell. Amanda, how are you doing?
Incomparable, John. I didn't come here for the compliments, but I'll stay. Thank you. I'm doing my best, as always, but it's good. I'm excited. This was a very interesting episode of SNL, and I'm thrilled to be here to talk about it. Great. And
absolutely.
With Anthony too. The AJAs, the opposite.
It'll be very fun to get into this episode tonight where we saw a lot of cameos. It was the Bad Bunny double duty hosted episode of Saturday Night Live. Whenever you get double duty in, you never know what you're going to see. It's always interesting because does the show trust the host enough to be able to pull it off? Do you get like on one aspect, like the Justin Timberlakes or Bruno Mars that seriously take over the entire show? Or is it sort of a, okay, yeah, they're the hosts, but are they really the hosts? And I think that may be what we saw tonight. So we're going to talk about the headline or hot take from the evening. And chat, I want to get your thoughts as well. So Anthony, how are you feeling about episode number 2 from season 49?
And we'll get into it a little bit later on. I thought it was a solid episode overall, but one that I actually got to do the hot takes for a little while back was for Meg Thee Stallion. And I feel like this one was very similar to that. It felt very Bad Bunny TM. If you're a fan of his, you're going to love this episode. If you're a fan of SNL, there will be a lot of highlights. But yeah, we'll get into it a little bit more, but that's kind of my overall take.
Okay, so that's a very interesting comparison. So last year, episode 3, we had Megan Thee Stallion come in and we came on. We were talking about how that was Megan Thee Stallion's episode of SNL and you couldn't see anything else in here. I do think that tonight, that though a lot of it felt like the sketches were written around Bad Bunny and Bad Bunny focused topics, they also went in a different direction with things, especially in the back half of the show. So I think that you're right in a sense, but it's not exactly one for one in my opinion. Yeah. Amanda, what was your hot take or headline from the night?
I love Benito. That's the first sentence. I just love Benito. I'm thrilled to see Benito do anything. I loved this episode. I thought it was interesting to see. I mean, I always talk about like my favorite little aspects of SNL, but like this felt like such deep fan service in a way that SNL sometimes kind of avoids doing. Like it tries to not be so like, we know the audience and the people who are coming to see this person like adore this person, like they stan this person. So we got an episode that was like very much about the culture around Bad Bunny as much as the culture that we're living in today. And I thought it was great. I thought it was just, yeah, like I just sit on it after the episode ended. I was like, I really enjoyed that. So I think, yeah, this was just a very interesting structural kind of fan servicey episode of SNL. And I loved that.
Yeah, I'm noticing a pattern between episode 1 and episode 2, which is like we are continuing the theme of making parts of this episode feel very much related to the host. So I do feel like there was a lot of Pete stuff, and now they're, at least not overly done, but there was some Pete stuff last week. And I do feel like Anthony said there was a lot of Bad Bunny related content. However, I think that SNL has made 2 choices. One is to take chances with some of their newer cast members or cast members that they haven't given those chances to before. In particular, I think Punky Johnson was given a chance tonight that she wasn't given previously. And that's the sketch that we're going to talk about that I'm very excited to talk about. Also, they went with it for recurring sketches. And that's something that we haven't gotten a lot of over the last couple of years, but they decided to bring 2 probably of the better sketches that we saw in season 48 back for season 49 tonight, very early on in the season. And I thought that was a fascinating choice of them. And I'll tell you, at the end of the show, there was even a sketch that was cut from season 48 as well that was brought back, a third one tonight. So we'll talk about that later on, that didn't actually make the air show. So let's get into the episode. The way that this show works is we give you our opinions on every single sketch, and you in the chat will let us know your thoughts as well, and we will bring them up on screen. So our cold open tonight is sort of our real first cold open of the season, is that we get Jim Jordan, who was recently, not voted in as Speaker of the House, and Mikey's playing Jim Jordan for the second time. The last time we saw Mikey play Jim Jordan was in Harry Styles' episode in season 45. We had Bill Hader do this previously in season 44. Heidi Gardner's in this as well. We have Bowen appearing as George Santos for the fourth time, third episode of George Santos. Last time was in Jenna Ortega. Chloe is Lauren Boebert. JJ comes back in as Donald Trump for the 15th time that we're going to see JJ as Trump here, ultimately culminating in some back and forth between Trump and Jim Jordan, where Trump as JJ as Trump will say live from New York. So, Anthony, thoughts on the cold open tonight?
I thought the cold open was fine. I think we've discussed this before. I'm not a huge fan of the political cold opens. I feel like sometimes they're just very hit or miss. This one, it's okay. I love JJ's Trump, so any opportunity to hear that's always fun. Granted, like we get it a lot. I thought that the moment with Lauren Boebert felt a little bit dated. We've already heard the story about her at the Beetlejuice musical now ad nauseum for the past couple of weeks. So that felt like it didn't really hit the point. I did really enjoy Bowen Yang's moment. I thought that he was funny. But yeah, overall, I was like, this is fine. Not necessarily something I'm going to be talking around like, with my friends around the water cooler on Monday, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, the movie theater Lauren Boebert thing, I mean, that was such a big deal a few weeks ago. And everyone's like, oh, I wish SNL was on this week so they could do something with it. So it sort of felt like they would try and find a way to include that. Amanda, what did you think of our cold open we got tonight?
It was too long. Okay. Like, it's like when I think at a certain point I was like, okay, like they're like, this is when they're padding like there's something that's why I'm shocked. I don't know how many sketches were cut for time, but like, I'm like, they had plenty of space for time in this episode, and this just felt just a little too long. I mean, yeah, the Lauren Boebert thing, I'm like, cool, we got it weeks ago. Mikey is looking really tired. I actually thought that was Jim Jordan for a second, and I feel so bad because I love Mikey Day, but I genuinely was like, what happened, Mikey? I was like, who is sucking your lifeblood out? But like,
I'm sure it wasn't the makeup.
In last sketch of the night, he was looking a little. I want to put some hyaluronic acid on his face, just a little need a hydration. I would know. But I love Mikey Day and I always love seeing him. But I think after a while, I was like, okay, we get it. Like, you're getting on all the cute little points, but it didn't run my gamut at all.
Yeah, like I think that where this cold open goes wrong for me, and this is something that we talk about a lot on this podcast about how to properly write a cold open that really works for fans nowadays, is that I felt like, okay, you're going to focus on Jim Jordan not getting elected or not getting voted in as Speaker of the House. And then, like that's sort of the center around it. And then we're going to bring in all of these other characters. And by default, we're then forced to break down the cold open into comparing character to character at that point, right? It's not like, okay, well, should SNL have done the Jim Jordan thing? It's okay, how does Bowen as George Santos compare to the Chloe part as Lauren Boebert? And how does that compare to the JJ as Trump part? So you start to think to yourself, okay, George Santos, Bowen, that was really funny the first time he did it. That felt like a natural fit. That was really good. I think that the Tupac and Jada line was really, really funny. Knowing that they were going to do some Jada thing on Update. Did I need that there? I don't know. I think Lauren Boebert, like I said, I think they needed to do something with it, but it was sort of a 1-for-1 of what actually happened with her getting felt up at a movie theater. And then the Trump thing, like I said, I think that this works for you if you like the non sequiturs that JJ does at Trump, because he does this so well. It's so natural for him to just come up with this on the spot. He can come up with this 5 minutes before the sketch. So if you think it's funny that he's going to start talking about the better Jordans, like the Michael Jordan and the Jordan Sparks, for what it's worth, that gave me a ton of laughs. I think that then you'll enjoy this. But if you're tired of the same tropes, I mean, they have a clearly defined thing that they're doing with JJ as Trump, which is that he's so identical to the real Trump, except he's going to go off on the non sequiturs to the nth degree. And you have to really like that to be able to enjoy this. So for me, I got a few good laughs out of this, but this was nothing special. Like this was cookie cutter for me in terms of what they've been doing with the cold opens over the last couple of years. And like I said, I still think this is one part of the show that I'd like them to work on more. But anyways, let's get into Benito from Anthony. Did you want to say one more thing with the cold open?
I had one question. How often has it happened previously where somebody's been interrupted as they're getting ready to go into the live from New York at Saturday night? I haven't seen it very often. So you keeper of the keys, do you know how often that's happened previously?
It's happened a lot, actually. Yeah. Like I wouldn't say like it happened a lot in the 90s, I believe. Yeah, there was like a sketch that because I was doing the live from New York stats for a very long time. There was a few sketches where people would like start to say live from New York, and then like Dana Carvey would interrupt them. So yeah, this has happened over the years and has caused, like, from a statistical perspective, a little bit of like a tough thing of like, where do you actually count the line? JJ gets the points here for saying this, but this is something that's happened before, and I do love, and I'll say this, like, I love it when stuff like that happens. I love it when they play with the format. I think that my favorite Trump from last year with JJ was the Easter one, where he's like, everyone's trying to stay still. And then he's like commenting on that. He's like, oh, they want to say the line. Well, they can't get to say the line. And I think like when you have the characters sort of break sketch, I think that's what makes this more fun. So that probably for me was one of the highlights of this moment.
Appreciate that. Thank you for indulging me.
Of course. Yeah, no, I love it. I love the trivia here because it's a lot of fun. And in the chat, by the way, if you have other examples of times this has happened, like, let everybody know, because this is stuff that we think about as fans. All right. So Benito comes out for the monologue, comes out with the shades, and, starts talking about he could do whatever he wants. So he can host in English and then does some Spanish. And we get some captions at the bottom about how he's going to speak in a sexier language. And this is all leading up to the fact that host from last year, Emmy nominated host from last year, Pedro Pascal, is going to join in to translate and encourage him to make self-deprecating jokes. And, Amanda, my thought was, as I saw this, I was like, as much as I love Bad Bunny and I think this is fun, damn, Pedro Pascal hosted an amazing episode of Saturday Night Live last year. And I just wish it was Pedro who was hosting again. I don't know what you thought. Let us know.
I need to give a shout out to that blue suit, that he was wearing. Oh my God. It's going to live rent free. That V-neck. I love this man. I thought it was, I was so happy when he came on my screen, and I was like, this is kind of the way I want, just a little bit. Like I said about the fan service thing, it's like we had a great episode, a memorable episode with Pedro Pascal last season. So it's kind of a natural alignment to kind of bring him back, bring him into, clearly this is them bringing him into the fold. Like, we now know, like, Pedro Pascal is family. He's part of this. So I was glad to see that. And it seemed like, I don't actually know anything about their actual relationship, but it seemed like there was a thing there. They were happy to see each other. There was relationship. I saw a picture.
You'd like this. I saw a picture of them together at the Met Gala. So I think that was. I
bet they were holding hands.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think I just really enjoyed it. And I think that for a monologue, and this being what it was perfectly serviceable. It was the perfect length of time. Also, not too long, not too short. And it was just fun, and it was lighthearted, and it didn't take itself too seriously. And I think it also gave a good precedent for the audience. If they didn't know Benito, they didn't know Bad Bunny, what he was up to, that was like a good, setting the stage for them too, which is what I always like.
Yeah, I would say, though, that as much as I feel like Pedro elevated the monologue, it also undercut Bad Bunny's moment, if I'm just being a little bit fair. Like, it certainly became all about Pedro Pascal, and I was watching like what he was going to do, just because he's just was such an impressive host at the time. And Anthony, like, I was thinking to myself when watching this, I was like, I wonder if SNL really wishes they could have gotten Pedro Pascal for this episode, but given the SAG strike, like, it just didn't make sense to do that. So, but either way, what do you think of the monologue?
Similar to you, I did feel like, Pedro definitely, I'm not going to say upstage, but he stole focus a little bit, because, once he shows up, it's like, this is super fun. And like, we really enjoyed his episode. And, the fact that like he didn't perfectly translate everything that Benito is saying. It's like it makes him almost like a co-host in that moment and kind of steals a little bit of the shine. But the first thing that I wrote when the monologue started was just Bad Bunny is so cool. Like he comes out and he just has like the swagger and he has like, just the bravado and everything. I think Casey mentioned it in the chat earlier. I love that from jump they kind of addressed the language barrier and how he's obviously going to be a little bit more comfortable in speaking his native tongue of Spanish. But I just really enjoyed it, and I loved that. Like that was the very first thing that I thought of, and then right after that, it's like make it more self-deprecating. It's like, well, Bad Bunny can't do that because it's like, what does he do that's not cool, that's not sexy, that's not dope, So yeah, I felt like perfect timing as far as long as it went. I didn't feel like it took up too much time. It was a great way to kind of intro and level set the show, but did definitely still a little bit focus away from Benito when I think he could have, really utilized that shine a little bit more.
Yeah. And again, like it's not easy to do double duty on this show. Like it's not meant for everybody. We saw Jack Harlow and Megan Thee Stallion do it last year. Like they're not naturally like Bad Bunny has acted and stuff, but he's not naturally meant to host Saturday Night Live. So I'm not criticizing it for the assist because I do think it just made the monologue more memorable. So I support what they did, but I think that you just take the good with the bad here, where somehow that would take away from his moment a little bit.
I also want to add the extra layer that he's also doing double duty while also doing it in a second language that is not his own.
Yeah.
Like that's truly that's a lot to put on one person in general. But this is mad respect, but there's also that factor.
Yeah, so let's get into our first sketch of the night, and that would be a rap battle. And here we go. Keenan's the host. We got Mikey Day as is it Walter White Boy? Mikey Day's there. He's talking to his friends Ego and Devin, and says he's ready to go up against this other rapper. And in comes Bad Bunny as the it's like the 8 Mile situation. Like he's ready to go in against Fuego, and Mikey's no Chris Parnell, but he goes in and he does his best rap about incest and being catfished by his dad and just all the interactions. And I guess the real joke here is you expect Fuego to then go and attack Mikey, but he just feels so bad for Walter White Boy. He says, "I'm so sorry you've been through all this. It's not your fault." They hug. And basically it's I thought this was a really fun sketch. I think that Mikey Day, Mikey had an amazing season 48, didn't do much last week. I do really feel like he had a good moment here and was really carrying the sketch on his back. Anthony, what did you think of Rap Battle?
I'm gonna be totally honest with you. It wasn't my favorite sketch, and it kind of made me nervous for how the rest of the night was gonna go. Just because from jump, I'm kind of again wondering how are they going to really fit Bad Bunny in here? When are we gonna really see his character and his humor start to come through? And it kind of felt like if this was on anybody else's episode, it could have just been a cameo. Like if he was just the performer, it would have been his opportunity to be highlighted within the show. So yeah, it didn't feel super memorable. It wasn't to me the funniest. It didn't land for me like I thought that it would as the first sketch of the show.
Amanda, did you like this more?
I think, it wasn't my favorite of the night. Actually, in retro, again, every time I do the hot take, I'm just there's one that I forgot. This is that. It's I forgot. But I think that I think again, I'm not knocking Mikey this episode. Mikey, I think, had an all-star episode. First of all, I love him. But I think I was glad it was short. I was glad it wasn't too long. And I was actually kind of shocked that it was the first sketch of the night. It was a weird kind of note to start on. I think Anthony made a really good point. This was a cameo sketch. This wasn't a feature the host sketch. So this is a great showcase for Mikey. Bad Bunny happened to be there.
Yeah, I totally agree with. This is a weird placement for this sketch. I didn't feel like an opening sketch. It felt like a really unique spot for something like this. This felt like something that would air more towards the end of the night. I like I said, I do think that the idea that Mikey can pull this off is as being such a bad rapper. And I think I noticed that somebody in the chat, our friend John Heyman in the chat, says Mikey rapping off beat was really annoying to him. I think that was the point, though. Like, I think he was supposed to be so bad that was you almost pity him, and to the point where you're watching the sketch from the viewpoint of Bad Bunny and being like, oh, okay, it's not your fault. I'm so sorry you've been through all that. And like, that's where that's where it worked. So look, this was okay to me too. I didn't I didn't know what to expect. And then once I saw this sketch, I was like, oh, okay, so Bad Bunny is sort of like not going to be the main character in any sketch at this point moving forward. So I have to expect that the cast is really going to carry it, which is sort of what I wanted and was my focus coming into the season. When I heard the first two hosts, I was like, if the cast can really carry these episodes, I think they're going to be strong. And I do feel like Mikey carried the sketch as much as he could. Then we get into the age of discovery. We're going back. We're going back about 400 years, or however many hundred years, to Marcelo and Bad Bunny, who have sent Mikey Day and Fred Armisen. It's like Fred always has to appear once every single season. So in a pre-tape, Mikey and Fred have gone on the trip to get to China for spices, but instead they discovered a new world, and they start bringing all of these new things that they found back to Marcelo and Bad Bunny. By the way, pre-tape, I believe, done entirely in Spanish, which is like we've discussed on this podcast before. Very like rare in the history of the show that they've done a sketch entirely in a different language. Of course, there's subtitles here, so you could understand what's going on if you don't speak Spanish. But we get to see different moments, including the turkey, the llama, the tobacco that looks like a dookie, and the gold as well. So lots of fun back and forth here. I think Marcelo truly in his element here, and Andrew Dismukes, by the way, I have to mention, absolutely killed me in this sketch as well. So would love to know, Amanda, what did you think about the Age of Discovery?
Okay, I don't love Fred Armisen. Sorry, I don't love him. It's a personal thing, but also I loved Los Spookies, so I'm always just happy to have any long form Spanish speaking content on my television. I really liked this, and I wasn't my favorite pre-tape of the night. We're gonna get to it. We're gonna get there, but Andrew Dismukes, I think, had an incredible. It was just amazing in this sketch, and I think everything about this is kind of just like, it was just perfectly serviceable for the moment that it was in. And yeah, I don't have a lot to speak on, but like, I just remember being like, I liked this. And I think it felt like a good pre-tape. That's my feeling on it. Sentiments.
Yeah, I just want to point out that this is so unique. Like the fact that they can go, like I know they have like a host that doesn't speak English as a first language, so this is like easier to pitch on a given week, but it's not an easy sell to be able to do something like this and pull it off, because you could lose focus from the audience so easily here, and you really have to follow along with the subtitles in order to sort of like follow the sketch, even though you could sort of see, like, get the gist of what they're giving here. But I just love that they took a big swing with this. And I think it was successful. Like, I love that they tried something unique here.
What I was trying to say. Yeah, I love the fact that they did this, and they did this so early in the night. They could have buried this. They could have. And I'm glad that they did this like top 2 in the night. They were like, we're letting you know what we're all about here. And I really appreciated that mostly.
Okay, see, that's interesting, though. That I don't know if I agree with. I don't know if I agree that I would put this at the top, though I think it is an interesting call that they did. Anthony, what did you think of the sketch?
I'm gonna have to disagree with you there, John, especially coming after the first sketch. I thought that this was very well placed because it immediately brought me in. Hearing everything in Spanish initially, you're like, oh, like I got to pay attention a little bit. Like I actually got to focus in on this one. The first note that I wrote, Marcelo, super, super dope, having him kind of like, be the co-star for this one. Felt like it's like when you have a new host that comes in and isn't too comfortable and you put Keenan in the sketch because he makes it work. Marcelo was very much that in this sketch and in a few others throughout the night too. So I thought that, he really just stepped up and did exactly what needed to be done. But when Benito can speak Spanish, that charm comes out, and he has like, just like a very relaxed nature, and it's free-flowing comedy, I think. And I really enjoyed watching the sketch with him being able to speak Spanish fluently throughout, because it just felt really good. And obviously, it being a pre-tape means you can edit and you can cut and you can really shape it into what it needs to be. But he just felt very natural in it. Other note that I wrote, Andrew Dismukes also all very much killed it. Him throwing holy water at the pumpkin / herpes melon was one of the funniest things, and I need a gif of that immediately. Yeah, I thought that the sketch was a little bit long, but I definitely was willing to ride with it because I was enjoying it.
Yeah, Andrew was like the highlight for me. I just found him so hilarious, and I just need to go back and watch that just for him. But yeah, I think what's interesting here is we had 3 pre-tapes that aired during the night. We had the PDD pre-tape that we'll talk about in a bit that aired in the same spot as the PDD pre-tape last week. So I think what's happening with the show now, including putting them in the montage, is we're going to get the PDD pre-tapes, I assume, in the same spot every week. Like that's the spot that they like right before the musical guest. So if that's the case, the choice becomes, do you place this pre-tape in here first, or the one that we're going to get later, which was the Waffle House, which is now the right track. And for me, I think that the right track, given the production value and how popular the Waffle House sketch was last year, like that was the sketch that all casual fans like knew about. I'm very surprised that that sketch didn't air early and this one air later. Like, it's not like SNL is like, oh, if the show goes long and we have to cut a sketch featuring Fred Armisen, we're never going to see him again. Like, Fred pops up every few weeks, so it's not like that crazy. So for me, I would have flipped those, but maybe everyone in the chat disagrees. I don't know. Yeah. I guess we'll find out, but let's keep talking about this throughout the week. But anyways, regardless of the placement of this, I think this was fun, experimental, and I enjoyed it. So great job here. I do want to talk about this next sketch. I'm very excited to talk about the telenovela sketch where we get Mikey as the director, Bowen as the marker, and we get this telenovela where we have Marcelo versus Bad Bunny, Thomas versus Francisco, and he's going to confront him, and it's going to be your typical telenovela, except Punky's going to come in. Punky's brought on as Latina Jefferson, I believe it is, and Punky cannot pronounce the words properly in Spanish, and this was so funny to me. We got to, I'm just going to say this, one more plug, shameless plug. We got to interview Punky earlier in the week. We got to talk to her about how she's going to try stuff this year. She's going to work with all these writers. She's going to try these characters. And if you attended the Radio City Music Hall last week, where Shay and Jost were both there on Sunday night, the day after, Punky was there as well and told the crowd that this was the sketch she was going to try and pitch this week. And she got it on the air. And wow, I thought she crushed it. She was so good. This was my breakout moment for like 4 years into Punky's career. I thought she did fantastic in this sketch. Anthony, what do you think of Punky and the telenovela sketch?
Love Punky in the sketch. It was, yeah, this was her breakout moment. This is the, to me, this is the Lisa from Temecula. Like, this might have like, you know, a little bit of a half-life. This might like, you know, have like a little wave on social, and she deserves it because she's hilarious. She shows up. She makes a lot of sketches work in very small ways, but for her to have one that very much centers and profiles, like, you know, her comedic chops, her timing, all of that, I loved it. I thought she was absolutely fantastic in this. Love Mick Jagger making the appearance. Did not expect that one at all. Yeah, again, Marcelo, like, you know, just really just making the sketch work and just being like, you know, the teammate that the host needs when the host is trying to get comfortable doing their thing. A lot of things in the sketch worked, but it's all Punky on this one.
Yeah, Amanda, I got to know what you think of Punky in her role tonight on the telenovela sketch.
It was perfect. It was, I mean, again, I was here with you almost, I mean, less than a year ago when Lisa from Temecula came on, and I cried because I loved it so much. And that's how I feel here. I was so happy for Punky. I thought this was such a breakout, and also so funny. A little too long, as over, you know, but like it wasn't long in a bad way. It's like long in retrospect where I was like, yeah, I can see like where it could have gone through like a second, just cut like, you know, one or two. But I was so happy for her. I think Anthony was making a really good point about Marcelo, how very much Marcelo was brought in as the ringer, like brought in to like make sure the host was like very taken care of. And I think I want to give Marcelo commend for that, because like for a younger person on this cast, that's a hard thing to be given the kind of the responsibilities for. And like here, last sketch, later on, or speaking of reprisals, it's all of that I think was really, really well done. But in general, I thought this was great. But then also, I mean, I love Mick Jagger, but is he going to be buried in in 30 Rock because Lauren will not let that man go.
Well, Mick Jagger is a young 80-year-old man, and I think he's
very
living it.
Sprite. Yes,
Yeah,
I love his facelift.
So let me say, first of all, I love that this sketch featured Marcelo in a perfect role that was cast for him, but had nothing to do with Marcelo's character. Like, it totally was like I was watching them two fight with each other, and then so pleasantly surprised that this was a Punky sketch, that it was so great. We're gonna get 2 appearances from Mick Jagger, and by the way, I'll just say Mick Jagger, who is playing the Papa in this sketch. So the Rolling Stones just performed in New York City at an album release party. So they had their new album that just came out a couple days ago called Hackney Diamonds, and they just performed recently at a huge album release party with Lady Gaga, who was on a song with them as well, and you'll see Lady Gaga come up in a little bit. So makes sense that Mick Jagger would be in the building. I guess a good friend of Lorne Michaels. If you didn't know this, Mick Jagger and the entire Rolling Stones hosted Saturday Night Live back in 1979 to kick off season 4 of the show. So in addition to obviously him coming back to host in 2012 at Kristen Wiig.
Do you think that like Mick Jagger looks at Keenan and is like, I was here before you were born? Like,
I thought you were going to say Mick Jagger remembers Keenan from 1979, because that's always a possibility as well. Yeah, I'll say we get 2 Mick Jaggers in this episode. I do think that the Mick Jagger appearance in the sister sketch works better for me than this one. And, this is like something that we talk about a lot of like when to properly place the cameos. I think that the surprise of Mick Jagger coming into that sister sketch works better than him like very randomly appearing in a telenovela sketch. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, we know Mick Jagger as that amazing Latin performer. Like, it's not like that doesn't make any sense. So this felt gratuitous to me to just throw him in there because he was in the building. But I guess it was like, oh, Mick's here, we got to have him in as much as possible. But I guess, look, it was fun. It felt like a party. It was really exciting to have him in the building. I don't know how many more Mick Jagger appearances on SNL we're going to get, who I believe we were talking about this before the show, may have appeared in every decade of Saturday Night Live, which him and Steve Martin, I think, are the 2 people. So we're going to fact check that. But yeah, I guess in a way, this was exciting, but I really don't want this to take away from Punky Johnson's moment on the show, because she was so fantastic in the sketch. After the telenovela sketch, we get PDD for week number 2. And this time, PDD starts off in the office and Bad Bunny comes in fully in Shrek gear because he wants to write a Shrek screenplay, or he has written a Shrek screenplay featuring John Higgins as Michael Jackson. And then as he's describing the play, they eventually turn into the characters. And they just keep on going as they finally buy into the sketch they buy into the film ultimately for Bad Bunny to give it up. So Amanda, what do you think about PDD number 2 this week?
Well, first of all, isn't this the same sketch like the on The Office when like Jim and they go meet with Ryan Howard and like he pitches them the Subway movie? Same thing, same premise, but worked better here because I'm like, why did they throw this random animation budget behind this sketch? Like, this was so unhinged. I fully like looked away from my TV for 30 seconds to go make a cookie, came back, was like, what is happening? This is like PDD every time they do this. I feel like they're just like, the hinges have been falling off, but like they're just getting increasingly unhinged, like off the rails. We can't, and I love that. Like, it's just this was perfectly stupid, and I loved it. Because why Shrek? Like, of all the franchises.
So random. And it was like, I'd say like I really enjoyed the PDD one last week. I feel like that was like, that was like an all-time top tier PDD sketch. I think this one for me was like more like weird. And like, I'm so curious about like how this developed. Was it the exact flip on the sketch where the PDD boys had to come?
Feels like one of those they found a Shrek costume in somewhere in the backlog, and they were like, let's make a sketch around putting Bad Bunny in this Shrek costume and just go from there.
But just think about the process of developing this. Is it like, okay, PDD goes to Bad Bunny and says, we want you to dress as Shrek and then pitch us a movie? It's just so much to think about here. Anthony, what did you think about it?
I really, really enjoyed this. This might have been, I'm gonna be honest, this might have been my favorite moment of the entire night. This is my type of humor though. I like, late adult swim, 1 o'clock in the morning, like nobody might be watching anymore. But they decided to throw something like, super crazy in. It felt like Eric Andre. It felt ridiculous. You never quite knew where it was going. I love an all gas, no break sketch where it's like joke after joke after joke. The cut from, oh, you guys are going to be playing these characters, to now we're all in costume, fully dressed as all of these characters, to if you just caught the joke before this where Bad Bunny says Puss in Boot, that is now the name of the character rather than it being Puss in Boots. It was just rapid fire. Like it did not let you off the hook. I really, really enjoyed it. The note that I had on my phone afterwards was I would kill to have one of the props of the script that they threw away in the trash at the very end of it. It was, yeah, this is very much my humor. I really enjoyed it.
This also felt like a B-side to a BoJack Horseman episode, like a B like storyline in a BoJack Horseman episode. Like it's like yeah, it was joke after joke nonstop, and I'm gonna rewatch this tomorrow because I thought it was I know there's things I missed because also I was making my single cookie. Yes.
Okay, so this is like a little bit of a deep cut sports reference, but sometimes like I'll watch a football game and a team likes to play slow and the other team forces them to play quicker and it throws them off their game, or they adjust to the speed of the game that's happening. And I just had that thought throughout this sketch, which is that Bad Bunny as a host is naturally speaking a second language. So he's slow in the way that he's giving his lines throughout the night, and you have to follow that along. But PDD's sketches are so quick. They're like the fastest paced sketches that we get on the show. And they force Bad Bunny to then speed up his dialogue. And that really works for me in this sketch. The quick back and forth between both sides, that is something that we don't get from Bad Bunny in the other sketches. And which is why it felt like probably more refreshing to see him as like a lead in this sketch really rally back and forth between mixed metaphors, but rallying back and forth between him and PDD. So I agree with you guys. I do think that this was a lot of fun. And then of course, like the animation as well here, like there was a lot of really great production work that went into the sketch. So yeah, I enjoyed this. I loved the PDD last week. I really liked the PDD this week. Next up, we get music from Bad Bunny, introduced by Lady Gaga on the first song, and then Pedro Pascal on the second song. So would love to know, Anthony, are you a Bad Bunny fan?
I am by proxy. I'm a pop culture fan. So it's like, how can you not be a Bad Bunny fan if you don't like music, hip hop, all of those things? And he also puts on a great show. I thought that, yeah, it was a very solid performance. I liked the all white stark background with the horse just kind of like rocking in motion behind them. And yeah, Lady Gaga introducing him again. It was just like, who else is going to pop up in this episode? So yeah, I enjoyed the performance.
Yeah, it's been a while since we saw Lady Gaga on the show. She previously hosted the show as well. So a lot of previous hosts over the last couple of weeks. Mike Murray had a great tweet about that earlier tonight. Amanda, what are your thoughts on Bad Bunny's music and his performances tonight?
Again, I love Benito. I just love Benito. I was happy to see this. Stage design, gorgeous. Wow, everything. He happened to wear the same top that I wore to my birthday in the second performance, that pearl top. Yeah, I wore that to my birthday. I was like, oh, cool. Love that. Looks way better on you than it did on
your birthday at Keenan's house.
That one. But yes, it was great. Also, but like Stephanie, Angelina, Joanna, Germanata, I love you, but we got to talk about the fact that I thought you were Rosalia for a second. I thought I would genuinely was like, what's going on, girl? What's going on here? I mean, I'm happy to see her always. I love her. But yeah, it was great performances in general. I love the horse. Always love a horse.
Yeah. Yeah, the tiny horse. It was a lot of fun. Bad Bunny's great. So let's go on to a weekend update where this time we only get one appearance. So it felt like the show was going a little bit long tonight, and then we only get one appearance on the weekend update desk. We had a couple that were cut. I'll tell you what they were in a second. But first, we have Ego as Jada Pinkett Smith. Obviously, a lot of talk last week. Everyone was talking about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Like that was the big talk. But really, there was other news going on between Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith as we we learned, and Ego got to address that this time, appearing and talking about the situation, and that she and Will had been not together since 2016, and it changes perspective on a lot of things. So Amanda, how do you feel like Ego did tonight as Jada Pinkett?
I thought the voice was so spot on. Like, and just like that demeanor that Jada has. I would like a word with hair and makeup about that awful wig, that green wig. It was green. It was green. It was not blonde. It was not white blonde. It was green. Yeah, I loved it. Like the chats are saying, it was kind of like Jada fatigue. We're all going through it. We knew it was coming. We're probably going to get a little bit more of it next week. Let's be real. Now that Will's back in the conversation. But I'm just always happy to see Ego do just like her thing and have her, and just like do something that's very much like, this is the thing that like Black people especially been waiting for. And I was waiting to see who they were going to get, like how she was going to take this. And she got it. It's great.
Yeah, so I want to bring up this comment from our friend Alice in the chat, who had mentioned to me that during Dress, they did Update looked way different, and throughout Update, Ego appeared a few times, even interrupting one of Che's jokes and appearing at the end of Weekend Update as Jada. So like they had more fun with a little bit of a runner throughout Weekend Update, whereas this was just one commentary. Anthony, what did you think of that one commentary though?
Sorry, you said the one commentary. This
yeah, the Jada one.
On
Update, yeah.
I enjoyed it. I think similar to what Amanda said, I think this should be kind of like our bookend to Jada Pinkett Smith for a little bit. It was funny, and I was surprised that I found it funny just because I feel like every joke that could possibly be made about this happened on Twitter throughout this entire week. So yeah, it felt like a nice, like, hey, like, let's put this one to bed one last time. I did have a moment where I was very much shocked by the wig, because I was just like, oh, how did they like manage to get all of that? And then if you like saw her like turn her head, it was like, oh, it's like packed in the back of that thing. So no, I really enjoyed that moment. I thought there were some really funny moments throughout Weekend Update as well. But the Jada Pinkett, it landed the plane, and I think Ego did a great job with it.
Yeah, I also want to say the New York Liberty joke, the WNBA joke. I stood up and I left the room. I was laughing so hard. It was so funny because I was like, I truly did not know they didn't win. And I was like, yeah, they did. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a New York cliche. Like, oh, whoops.
Yeah, was that a New York cliche, or was that like a people don't watch women's
people
basketball
in New
cliche?
York have been all about the New York Liberty. Like, it's been like people have been, I mean, it's almost in the same way like the Women's National Soccer League became this summer for a lot of people. Also, that's going to be jokes next week, predicting that. If they know what they're doing. But yeah, so I think that's I don't think anyone knew that the New York Liberty didn't win, but I think everyone in New York absolutely thought the New York Liberty like won.
One thing I will say too about the sketch, I didn't expect to see another Jada Pinkett joke or like, moment happen. I thought, and like they did make a joke about it earlier in the episode or in the sketch. I thought that we would get a Britney Spears moment because her book has been kind of having like a slow burn with all of like the Justin Timberlake stuff. I was like, maybe this is an opportunity to like, really dig in there. So I was surprised they didn't go in that direction instead.
Yeah, they did have that one joke about JT and the denim and stuff like that. But yeah, I will tell you what was cut from Weekend Update tonight that we saw in dress rehearsal. So in Dress, they had Devin Walker as one of Michael's barbershop friends talking about selling bootleg Taylor Swift era's movie DVDs and other bootleg DVDs. So that one got cut. And then we had a Sarah Sherman bit with Colin as Colin's agent. So assume it was another way to sort of just have fun with the Sarah Sherman, Colin Jost back and forth. So let's see if one of those pops up next week, because those are both cut this week. Okay. After Weekend Update, I really loved our second half of the show, at least these next couple sketches, where we get the return of protective mom Claudia Flores from Pedro Pascal's episode, which to me was a real highlight of season 48, where Marcelo as Luis is back, and instead of Chloe Fineman, we get Chloe Trost this time as his girlfriend, and he's going to see what he thinks is just his aunt, played by Bad Bunny, but also Marcelo's overprotective mom is back. And I think this sketch is so brilliant on so many levels. There's so much like just the dialogue, the back and forth, the mannerisms that Pedro Pascal does here. Like, it is just as good as you can get from an SNL host. I know he wasn't hosting tonight, but it's so well done. I loved every minute of this, and I'm so happy that they brought it back. And I actually think that if they didn't, we would have all been like, ooh, disappointing that they didn't bring this back because it was so strong from the first time we saw it. Anthony, were you a fan of the return of the protective mom?
Yes, I enjoyed this sketch. Again, I really enjoyed Bad Bunny. I feel like he really did show up to play, and I honestly feel like that's kind of like, a through line of his entire career. Him like with the WWE, how like he really threw his body into like everything he was doing there. And similarly here, it was like, he really showed up, and it's like, yeah, seeing him in like, full makeup, wig, lipstick, ready to go. This was a fun one. And then yeah, the fact that we get to see Pedro come back and they're playing off of each other. It was a really, really fun sketch. My favorite moment, hands down, had to be the Danish cookies getting dumped and then turning into a storage container. Any person from a minority household, that is just a universal thing. If you see that blue tin somewhere in the house, it might have cookies in it or it might have sewing supplies. And I really enjoyed that made that made it into the sketch. That was a really fun moment.
Oh man, that was so funny. Amanda, what did you think of the sketch?
The minute I saw that set, I knew what was happening. like I saw the set and I was like, Pedro's coming. I was like, I thought this is like, we talk on this podcast a lot about like what happens when recurring sketches become like, when does it become monotonous? But like this is exactly how you do it. It's like, it's a through line that we know and we recognize, and you're bringing in another character that's relevant, and you're giving those two characters a common enemy, basically. And so it could have been totally like the same thing over and over again, but this one was very much just like very refreshing and very, nice to see. And I loved it. I just loved it. And I think it's so stupid. And yeah, it was great. Always happy to see it. And yes, I have a cookie tin here. It's full of buttons. All but like when you get your clothes, they give you the extra clothes, the extra buttons, full of buttons.
That is so great. That is in that moment, just also like the physical comedy to be able to like do that live and like nail it and get all of the threads into it was so good. And I really do feel like there are moments of this that are cookie cutter to the first one, but the added element of having Bad Bunny in this sketch, I think just makes all the difference here, where it's not the, singular relationship between the mom and the girlfriend anymore. It's now like 2 against 1, which really changes the dynamic in an awkward situation. And I feel like this sketch not only is written a little differently, but it feels different too. So it's like you get what we want. And Amanda's so right. Like we discussed what makes a great recurring sketch. It is like we like to take the situation and just spin it on its head, or take it and move it into a different environment. And yes, same set, same moments, where at the end of the sketch, we know that Chloe is going to end up impressing the mom and the aunt, but the way to get there was a little bit different. And I think that's why this really worked for me. So huge shout out to everybody involved, including PDD, who I know writes these sketches with Marcelo. So just really awesome. And I do love, I'll just make a couple lines that I really enjoyed, including the whole, like, he doesn't have depression. He just really likes the dark. The list of them talking in Spanish, and you obviously get the little words that come out, booty call, side chick, and they're just going on and on, the flat ass. And then ultimately Chloe just saying, how many times have I told you that you're not eating enough? And they just like fall in love with Chloe Trost. And I have to shout out Chloe Trost, who in only her second episode of the show has impressed me. She's been really good, has a lot of poise on stage, is really like learning her way on there, and to give her this role, I think, was the right choice of SNL, because it wasn't something where, oh yeah, she's completely dominating, but she's took a major step up from last week where she was in a background role, and I'd rather see those new cast members continue to elevate as they go. So thought this was great from Chloe. Okay. Then we get the sketch that I was talking about before, which was The Right Track. And this is recurring from the Jenna Ortega episode last year, where we had that, big sort of like CW-esque soap opera between Jenna and Marcelo as they're outside of a Waffle House. But this time it is Devin who has applied for a job with JJ and confronts him outside of the subway. And they're having this whole conversation, and the conversation does not matter, because everything that is happening within the subway is what you need to watch. And this time my trained eyes were focused on just trying to get every little detail that I can down. There were so many moments. I'm sure I missed them. So live chat, please tell us your favorite moments from this sketch. But it really, from what I saw, it kicks off with Bowen with the seat being wet. We have Marcelo and the dancers. Heidi's on the phone. She ends up getting kicked. Mikey's yelling with a cereal box. Ego is yelling about the balloons that Chloe Trost is holding. Keenan, really the major button on the sketch. He's walking around with his junk out. There's the whole sequence with the rat. Where Molly gets destroyed. Bad Bunny eventually gets the rat. Punky takes the rat and just smacking it against the window, which I think for me was my favorite part of this sketch, ultimately for it to end up on Bowen's face later in the episode. And then the button on the sketch is that JAJ gets on the subway, and then in comes Keenan with his junk out again. I love these sketches. I think they're so well done. It was so unique for me last time that's what made it extra special. But now that I knew that was coming, I was just so excited for it again. So, Anthony, what were your thoughts on The Right Track?
I really, really enjoyed this one. This was hilarious. I actually thought that it was funnier than Waffle House, in my opinion. But yeah, every individual detail, like you mentioned, Bowen Wang immediately standing up and yelling, "Why is this seat wet?" Watching Ego pop all of the balloons individually. The moment when Punky is slamming the rat, and then I think the line she has after was "scared of a damn rat," and then like walks off. Like, it was hilarious. There was not one moment in there that felt like it was gratuitous or didn't need to happen. And then I think the funny thing is, like, there's so much happening that you said, like, you know, you're not even focused on the conversation. Then I start to focus on it, and even that's ridiculous. The fact that like Devin's shirt is like half untucked. Like, the tie is just completely like uncrooked and unkept. Everything about it so ridiculous. And it's like, why hasn't the train moved? Why is the same, like, you know, car still sitting here throughout this entire conversation? It was hilarious. It was a really, really good sketch. I loved it.
Yeah, and I think like SNL's covered like every aspect of New York. There has been sketches they've done in the past about the subway station, but like the great thing about these sketches, Amanda, is that they can pack in so much in such a little time, and it doesn't feel like, oh, there's too many jokes. Like, you're just so excited to see what the next Easter egg that's going to happen next. I think that's for anybody who watches a TV show, and I know you watch a lot of scripted shows, like when you're watching it and you're like looking for something else that's happening on the screen, it is so exciting personally to watch that. So to have that happen in a comedy sketch is amazing. What did you think of this?
First of all, I would read the TV tropes article on this sketch for 3 hours. Like, I would read every single trope that they had featured here, because there are so many. And also, as a person who lives in New York, almost every single thing of this happened as I have seen, witnessed, or heard from another person. Like, it was very triggering. I was like, even today I was on the subway and like a guy fully ass out, junk out. Like, I was like, sir, I'm walking behind you.
So,
that's what
so that person doesn't get arrested. Like, I'm not like, I'm in New York like once or twice a year. So I'm just trying to understand.
No, like like they're just ass out, hanging out.
He paid his fare, John. They're not going to do anything to him. He's got to get where he's going.
And 90 cents. Cost you almost $3 to take the subway.
All is fair, right?
But yeah, so like the balloons, if they're a balloon, like I have absolutely seen a woman just go whoop to somebody's balloon in the subway, like in your face on a packed subway car. No, but my favorite detail about JAJ at the kicker at the end getting on that is that he got on the empty train. You don't get on the empty train. That's the rule. Like, if you see a train car and it's empty, you don't get on it. It's empty for a reason. And so for Keita to come in as like, yeah, you got what you deserve, bro. Because at least there wasn't a poop in the middle of it, like one time when I saw that. So this, yes, John. Also, it was like 90 degrees in the middle of August too, and there was no heat on that train. It was
You're painting
really
a great picture.
Blessing. Move to New York, y'all. It's a wonderful place to live.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yes. So I thought that this was, again, I loved Waffle House. This was, I think, a little bit tighter and a little bit less. And I think because we are predisposed to like know what we were getting into, we were all like ready to be like with our microscopes or magnifying glass. Thank you. And looking what's going on. Yeah, I thought it was great though. And I'm glad also to bring it back to like what was happening with Devin and JAJ, like that whole like Goodwill Hunting, like I'm like you can't work here because you're homeless. Like I love, like, I'm just like, whoever was writing that had so much fun writing that serious content. We're just like, let's get the people back and have the fun. And yeah, yeah. So this is both triggering and great for me. A whole
Also,
roller
the
coaster.
cherry on top for me for this sketch was that I fully expected Mikey Day to come out of the subway and be like related to one of these two people, like probably JJ, but like really like the way that he was like, "Oh hey baby girl" to Jenna last season, but that doesn't happen here. So we were left wondering how is this sketch going to end, and I thought that the ending itself was so funny and Keenan just doing like his best Keenan. So I have a lot of trouble figuring out which one I like more. We're definitely gonna have to ask our audience which one was the better one, because that was a lot of fun. So next up, we get Sister Act 3, Kevin Gone Wild, where this was I wouldn't call this a recurring sketch, but it's a little bit of a recurring theme-ish, where we get Molly Carney leading a sketch involving nuns, because in the Aubrey Plaza episode, that was their like first breakout moment on the show last season, with Molly as a nun. But we get the rest of the female cast as sisters, and then we also have Bad Bunny as Sister Teresa. And the whole question that Molly has for the rest of them is, which one of you is posing as a nun just to sleep with the other nuns? And I guess the sketch itself is really just going down the line, all the women talking about how much they're enjoying the sex, and then it's so obvious that it's Bad Bunny who's the person that's sleeping with all of them. But wait, it's actually Mick Jagger who comes in as Sister Kevin, who has corrupted the sisters. And to me, like I said, I think this was a much more effective use of somebody like Mick Jagger coming in here, because it was unexpected. I didn't expect him to come back in this one. And it's like, really? You're sleeping with Mick Jagger? So a lot of fun here. Amanda, what did you think of this sketch?
Like, I think we talked a little bit earlier about how this episode kind of like was an uphill. Like I loved this. Like I thought that like it wasn't my favorite. Like it was maybe one of my favorites of the night, shockingly, because I think it was just so vulgar and like kind of and very dirty in the way where I was like, normally that's not my sense of humor, but I thought that was like the perfect tone. Also, it's an ever impending joke about like the long lasting existence of Mick Jagger's sex appeal, because the man, he may be 80, but he's still hot. Let's be real. You've seen him in the 70s. I mean, in the 70s, like, have you listened to Beast of Burden? Like, you know? Yeah, and I liked it. I was kind of waiting for, like, it was like, obviously it's not going to be like Sister Teresa who is sleeping with these women, obviously. And I was waiting for that. It was very obvious from the get. But and again, I was like, where's Molly Shannon? Molly Shannon could have been right there. But anyway, I like a nun sketch. I like Molly so much, and I like Molly in this format. And I also really, I also like the fact it gives an opportunity for even just those single line deliveries, these one-off little lines, like those can make a sketch. And I think there were a lot of them here. Yeah.
No doubt, Mary Catherine Gallagher would have the hots for Mick Jagger at this point. So, but that would have been on top of all the wild cameos and everything that was happening that night. That would have been absolutely crazy. Anthony, what do you think of this one?
I thought this one was fun. It's not my favorite sketch of the night, and I think similar to Amanda, like, it did what it was supposed to do. It was fun seeing, like, each one of the cast members kind of have, like, a quick moment. Fun seeing Mick Jagger pop back up again. Felt very unexpected. It very much didn't feel as though Bad Bunny was necessary in this one. Kind of just felt like, like we just got to plug him in because he's the host and we just got to keep this thing moving. I think that it would have made a lot more sense to me, though, had this been the final sketch of the night. It felt like a nice kind of way to just wrap up the entire show. Felt like it kind of landed a little bit better to me than where we ended up with the sketch following this one, but wasn't necessarily my favorite, but I thought that it was fine.
Yeah, I thought that this was a good sketch. I enjoyed it. I don't think it reached the highs of the previous two, and it definitely for me didn't reach the lows of what we got next with Burt's Bees, which for me was a very odd sketch to end the night, where Mikey is like sort of like the CEO or head of this section of Burt's Bees, and we have Bowen and Ego and Bad Bunny as Enrique, as well as Keenan as employees, and they're discussing potential layoffs, but they keep cutting to Bad Bunny, who's very excited to share that his daughter's getting married to a guy named Jeff who works at Google, and despite being the company's accountant, Bad Bunny has no idea like about any of their numbers, and it's just that they can only care about what Bad Bunny is saying here. Yeah, I didn't love this one, Anthony. I assume you didn't either.
Same. I was very surprised this one made it to air. I liked the concept of it, like the whole theme of like, we've been acquired, and it's like, what does that mean? It's like, well, like typically like the leadership's the first one to go. It's like, wait, have you heard anything? Like, why do you think that? No, that's not gonna happen. Like, it has the makings for a really good sketch, but I just couldn't quite understand where it was going. Bad Bunny's character just being really excited about his daughter getting married just kind of felt like it was just shoehorned in. The way that it ended with like, like the I am Spartacus, we're all just going to stand in this together. It just didn't feel like there was really a through line to it. And yeah, it's like, as much as I didn't necessarily love Sister Act 3 before this one, it felt like that would have made a lot more sense to like kind of end things with versus this one, where it felt a little bit scattered. It just didn't feel like it didn't really feel like it served a purpose, or that it really kept the host in mind either.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting conversation here, because I think that they may have put this sketch in there so that they gave a sketch where Bad Bunny is the lead. Because throughout the night, they had all the cameos. They had moments where he's constantly being, secondary to other people in the sketch and playing into it. But here, he's the focus of the sketch, similar to how last week we had that one Pete sketch, besides like the I'm Just Pete and stuff like that, where that one Pete live sketch with the Wired autocomplete interview, where you had it be like all the normals, and then Pete was sort of the crazy there. I think that is what we had here with Bad Bunny, and maybe why they wanted to put this in. But the problem is that Bad Bunny, I don't think has like the comedy chops to be able to lead something like this in a way that is like this only works if Bad Bunny is so ridiculously crazy that it's funny. But Bad Bunny is really cool and doesn't pull this off. So I don't know, Amanda, it didn't click for me.
Okay. I wanted it to click. I was waiting. Like I truly like I've written enough sketches earlier than this one. I just like seeing just how endearing Benito was. Like, he was just so sweet. Like, that was like, he was, I want to know about his daughter's wedding. Congratulations to her and Jeff, who works at Google. But like, I will say it did get my biggest laugh of the night. And this is simply because the line where it was, we work for Burt's Bees, we grind up bees and make them into chapstick. It did my stupid heart, because that's absolutely like a joke I would make, and also just very, very stupid. But and I think Ego was a star in this. I really do. But like you said, I didn't really put that together. This was really meant to be like, oh, we have to give the host one sketch where it's like about the host is here, and we make sure that they have like their one little moment that isn't just overshined by other people, or we don't have other ringers brought in and it's about them. So I wanted it to work, and I'm sad that it's the tone they ended it on, but I understand it served its purpose.
Yeah, I would guess that they really wanted this in the show so Bad Bunny can have that moment where he's the lead of a sketch. Like, that is my best explanation for something like this. And if it worked for you, then great. I'd probably need to rewatch it, I'd say, to really get it, because I do think that the Ego praise is well deserved, but maybe that there's things I missed from Ego's perspective in this sketch. All right, well, that will do it for the sketch by sketch for the night. I'm going to ask Anthony and Amanda to think about the ratings out of 10 for this episode. And chat, I want to see your ratings as well. While you're thinking about those, I'm going to tell you what sketches were cut for the night. So I mentioned the 2 update pieces earlier on with Devin and Sarah. We also had a sketch that was cut last week, again cut from Dress this week, which was the Bud Light Both Sides, that pre-tape from Colin Jost that did not make it on again this week. We also had 3 live sketches that were cut, including an Access Hollywood sketch with Marcelo and Heidi as hosts and Ego as a field reporter. Main focus of the sketch included Keenan as Clarence Thomas at Bad Bunny's house party, I believe. So there was some interesting back and forth there on Access Hollywood. We also had a Bowen sketch that was cut, and that was the recurring sketch I told you about, which was, remember Garrett from Hinge from the Travis Kelce episode last year? We almost got Garrett from Amazon Marketplace tonight with Bowen as Garrett returning. And we had Pedro Pascal in that sketch as well, so that one was cut. We also had a Heidi sketch with the Miami Dolphins cheerleaders photo shoot, where the Dolphins cheerleaders are taking their new photos, and Heidi comes in with a lot of long hair that ends up blowing into all of their faces when they turn on the fan. So that was a Heidi sketch, a Bowen sketch, Access Hollywood, Bud Light both sides, and then the Devin and Sarah cut from the week. All right. And apparently these were some really good sketches, according to our friends who are at dress rehearsal. Okay, let's get the ratings out of 10. Anthony, where would you put this episode?
6.5 out of 10 for this episode. It is the Bad Bunny and Friends episode. It's, if you're a Bad Bunny fan, you're going to find a lot of reasons to enjoy this. You're going to, just really be happy that he got the opportunity to perform on SNL and do his thing. If you're a fan of Mick Jagger and just having random celebrity cameos pop up throughout, this is going to be a really fun episode for you. And I thought that the pre-tapes were really, really funny. I thought that those were all incredibly solid, and I hope that they all, get viewed over the weekend and that people all get the opportunity to really consume those, because I think they were all very strong. But you remove those from it and you take the show kind of for what it was, and it doesn't feel like a super memorable one for me. So yeah, 6.5, 6.5 feels right to me.
Very solid rating. Amanda, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to give it like a 6.75, like a not quite a 7, but not quite a 6.5. I think it had really, really strong points, like really good, strong moments. I think that it did a good, they did the best they could with showcasing their host. And I think they should get a lot of credit for the showcasing they did for other people while showcasing the host, if that makes sense. Like, this was allowed to be an episode where like Anthony said, Bad Bunny and Friends, but it was almost like Bad Bunny, Ego, Marcelo, and Punky and Friends. And I think that it was just this was the most radical episode of SNL I've seen in a very long time, and I will give them a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I walked out of this episode feeling like I was probably going to go with a 5 out of 10, if I'm being completely honest. I think that this was like a good episode. It was probably like an average episode of the show. But in talking about it with the both of you, and I think that I'm going to realize this, there was a lot of good sketches in this episode, like very solid, above average stuff. Like, I do think the Age of Discovery was really strong. The telenovela sketch had Punky had her breakout moment. PDD sketch was very good. Protective Mom and The Right Track were my two, like the two recurring sketches were my two favorite moments of the night, to be honest with you, and I really enjoy those. So I think I'm looking at more of like a 6.5, like you gave it, Anthony. I do think that this is like, I sort of look at my ratings, and we talk about this during the year, which is like out of 10. Okay, like if I'm starting to think about where in the history of the show would this episode rank, I do think that this is an above average episode. There's a lot of really positive things here. So probably, 65%. Good. That's where I would put this. And always, we give ourselves the opportunity to rewatch the episode and talk about it more later on in the week to be able to adjust some of these ratings. And that's what's going to happen when we are back here on Monday night for our roundtable with a great panel to break down the sketches that we really want to dive into more this week. So that is Monday night. Wednesday night, we have our By the Number show, where we will be back for the screen time. Mike and Victoria will be there, and they will tell you all of the screen time from this week, so you can see all of the guests and what their screen time was in comparison to the cast. That will be fun. Thursday, we'll be back for the continuation of the greatest cast members of all time countdown show. We got 3 more cast members to reveal on Thursday. We'll also have a patron-only show on Thursday that will be released to you on Patreon, where you will get to ask us for a sketch that you want us to dive even deeper into. It's really fun film analysis that we do on a sketch during the week. So if you want to join our Patreon program, patreon.com/the SNL Network, and hopefully some more goodies along the way, like our Punky Johnson interview from last week. That was really fun. If you haven't checked that out, it'll give you more context for a sketch that you saw tonight in the telenovela sketch to see what her mindset is going into a week like this. There's so much here on the Saturday Night Network. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and follow us on all social platforms, Facebook, Twitter, X, and TikTok. Anthony, thank you for joining us tonight. Where can the listeners check you out?
I am at Air Conway on Instagram. Best place to check me out, see what I'm up to, send me a DM, all those good things. And thanks for having me, John. This was so much fun tonight.
Of course. Always a pleasure to have you back on the show season after season. So thank you for joining us, Anthony. Amanda, so great to get to talk to you again. Please tell the listeners where they can check out everything you got going on.
2 weeks in a row, John. What a blessing.
So great.
I love it. I know.
Love it.
You can follow me on the artist formerly known as Twitter and on Instagram at Loch Ness Manda. You can read my work at Refinery 29. I go read, I wrote a story about makeup palettes this week, and go read it. It's really good. And it's really good. I'm not joking. I spent 6 months on it. And yeah, that's basically it. And again, thank you, John. Always happy to be here. And I'm always happy to stay up for 2 a.m. for very few people, but you count as one of them.
Well, I appreciate it. And the listeners, thank you as well. And I just want to give one more message, which is to any of our listeners who are not with us live, but like to watch the show on Sundays or Mondays or watch our show and let us know what they think. Write your comments in the YouTube comments. I'd love to see after the fact what you thought of what we thought of the show and what you thought of the sketches. It's always really fun. And I do read those, and I love to get your feedback, even if it's not during the live show. So let us know as well. All right. Well, thank you for everybody for joining us tonight in the live chat who stays up late with us week after week. Thank you to Anthony and Amanda. My name is Jon Schneider from the Saturday Night Network, and we will see you next time, everybody. Have a good